It's that time, and I already know that this video is probably not going to be uploaded till the middle of April. Welcome to me talking about the books that I read in the past month. It was a very successful reading month. I read 16 books. 3 of those were series I started and finished. We'll get straight into it. I'll put some numbers here if you want them. And let's get into the first book that I read in the month of March. The first book I read in March was a library book because the library reopened, and that was Dolls Volume 1. It has story and art by Yumiko Kawahara. Here it is. It's a very pretty cover. This is my first manga, and it's just a collection of short stories about dolls and the people that obtain them. They're all men, by the way, I think. Maybe there's one story about a woman, but they're all men. They're like little children, but they're not because they're fake. Unfortunately, this wasn't like my favorite. Not a great introduction to manga. It was just kind of okay. Like, there was 2 stories that I really did like, and I think redeemed the generalness of this book. It was the second story and the last story. The last story was fantastic. It was like semi-gothic, it was eerie, it was dark. The artwork in that one was great. The artwork in general, again, isn't like, I don't really like it. So that was my first experience with the manga. And then I read one of my most anticipated releases of the year, which is Dog Flowers by Danielle or Gayer. This is a memoir about the author's life that she wrote in regards to her mother's death and her processing her childhood. I loved the story-like way that this was told. It felt like I was reading a fiction novel about, you know, just this person going through these experiences, and I kind of like this repetition thing that I don't know if it was on purpose, but it was like these events in her life would happen and then they'd happen again, and then there's recovery and then they'd happen again, and it was kind of like that over and over again, and it just made you feel so much for the character. Oh my god. It just made you feel so much for the author and what they went through. And then there's a small part of this book that also involved with her mother's death that's about her reconnecting with her indigenous family that she never really knew because her mother purposely kind of separated them. And I thought that was really beautiful because she had kind of been alone for a long time, and she found family with these people, and especially with her cousin or her sister. It was just really beautiful to me. It did take me a little bit to read it though, because I think I wasn't interested in reading it at the time, which is just really bad. I do this a lot. I'll just push myself to read something versus putting it down and picking it up later. So it did take me some time to read it, but I do think it was worth it. And another thing I want to say, I really like the kind of closure aspects this book has. It's almost like the author was closing off this chapter of their life that occurred for like so long, and with the revival, with the reunion of her with her family and then the death of her mother, it just felt like a moment, and I thought that was really beautiful. I completely forgot what inspired me to, at this moment, read it, but I did, and that would be the Shadow and Bone trilogy. First, of course, I read Shadow and Bone, which I was putting off reading because everyone was saying it sucked. And let me just tell you that the internet lied to me, and I just think it was really fun. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't read fantasy a lot. I loved Alina. Oh my god, Alina. Everyone was saying you're boring if you love Alina, but like, Alina is just cool, you know? I love her so much. I love all the characters, really. Like, it's not the most action-packed book. I also really love palace settings. Like, if you have any fantasy recommendations where it's mainly set in a palace, give them to me, because I think learning about like court life and the kind of gossip that goes around the palace and things like that, I just think that's so interesting to me. So Shadow and Bone is set in the palace, the little palace, is it called? I think so. If you don't read fantasy a lot, I feel like you'd still like this one. And then of course I read Sage and Storm immediately afterwards. So this one is my least favorite in the trilogy. It's not as exciting as the other ones. Like, it's definitely more based on the journey rather than the destination, which I think is a quote a lot of people really reference when they talk about this book, because it's kind of just things waiting for anticipation of things to happen, and then it happens in like 30 pages. Now starting to be developed, which is so nice to see. And Sturmond, I love him. okay? And I'm talking about Sturmond, okay? There's a little bit of a difference between him and another character, in my opinion, and I think Sturmond is someone I might consider a favorite. And then my hold for Rune and Rising wasn't in yet, which is fine, because I always need to take a break between the last book and the rest of the series anyways. So I decided to pick up Beastly Bones by William Ritter. This is the second book in the Jacoby series. I still haven't taken the sticker off. Yeah, I need to do that. But this is just a kind of Victorian mystery series. I think I don't know if I should compare it to Stalking Jack the Ripper, but like, that's the most popular Victorian mystery series I can reference, I think. If you kind of like that energy, do this. I don't know how much romance in this is in that series, but there's not a whole lot in here. So if you also vibe with like minimum romance, this series is for you. But this one continues after the events of the last book, like very much directly, literally like the same day, I think. And they're just going on another mystery. And they travel to a farm out in the countryside for this one. I really like this one because it had amazing banter and this really cute romantic scene at the end that you would totally see in a movie. It was just, I love it so much. It was a little bit slower in terms of pacing than the first book, so it actually did take me like 2 days to read this versus the first book, which it only took me one sitting. Which was fine though, because I still really liked the whole dinosaur plot. I loved the new characters. They were the ones that really brought in the fun banter in this. And I think you should read this series. It's just fun. And it has like so much rereadable qualities to it. My hold for Rune and Rising did come in, but I wasn't ready yet. So I listened to Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda because everyone on TikTok was talking about it. Or yeah, a lot of people on TikTok were talking about it, and I thought it was finally time. Because I was very excited for this one. Yeah, this one was really good. This is a 1950s Chinatown, San Francisco setting, which is just amazing in itself. Like, literally read the book simply for that, because Malinda Lo really creates a fantastic atmosphere and you really feel like you're there with the characters. But we follow our main character as she's kind of discovering her sexuality in relations with this new unexpected friend that she makes. And then she's also trying to deal with her family dealing with near deportation issues. I also really liked the kind of like learning about lesbian culture in well, I wouldn't say like 1950s, but like what it was at the time in San Francisco, which was, if you may or may not know, it's a very, it's very much known for being like the most accepting place in the world when it comes to like expressing yourself and being who you are, especially with homosexuality. And no one really talks about it anymore as such, so I don't know if that's still true, but a little fun fact for you. It was just yearning. It was so... I can't... You need to read this. You need to read a lot of books that I read this month, if I'm being honest, because they were all fantastic. I read Rune and Rising, the final book, and the Shadow and Bone trilogy. I knew like I was gonna be depressed. It's just the end of series are always so impactful to me, because even if I just like binge read a series in a matter of a week, I still always like get attached to the characters. And I think the thing with that is just seeing them grow throughout the series. Mal, for example, I actually did really like him in this book. During my reading, I didn't like him, but it's been some time since I've read it, and I realized that I think his development was really nice, and the main issue I have with him as a character is that he's just boring. I just can't get past the grooming thing, sorry. But I do think the Darkling is a very good villain, and I kind of liked this humanity that we got from him in the third book. This one is my favorite. I think it has the most action. It's very fun. It has like basically all the characters we've been introduced to in the entire series. We get more Zoya content in this. Zoya is fantastic. And then I have my, what was it called? Oh, the Bogopolython vlog that's going up. But in that I gave really thorough reviews of Down Comes the Night, The Guest List, and House on Mingo Street. So I won't be talking about those in that video. But I did mention that I read Black Sun. I didn't talk anything about it though for whatever reason. So I'll talk to you about it right now. Let's start off with the most obvious, which is that I gave this book 5 stars. I have yet to read like 1-star reviews of this, but I do think I get the general notion, which is like it's too much world building, it feels like a prequel, nothing happens, and it's a little underwhelming. But I feel like a lot of reasons why those people didn't like it is why I did love it. The world building, for example. The world building is like fantastic. I really love learning about this world, and it kind of explains things in fantasy that I always have a question about, which is that fantasy world that? Or is there more beyond the map that we get to see? There's a line in this that explicitly says, oh yeah, this is the it was an M word, I forgot, but this is the M area in our little corner of the world, and that really was satisfying to me because I've always had a question. This is multi-perspective, and we follow a bunch of characters in 2 sides of the world. One side, we have Shaola, is not a pirate, but she sails the seas, and she gets recruited by a merchant to captain this ship that's taking this one guy to Toba, which is where he needs to be, and she needs to get there like pronto, and she accepts because she doesn't want to go back to jail, and it's also like a great reward. She's gonna get the ship and everything, so it's their journey. And then we also follow characters in Toba. Nara, she is the sun priest, and she's kind of preparing for like the eventual eclipse that's gonna happen. But she's also trying to humanize the priest, which I believe kind of stand as a middle position between humans and the gods. So they're kind of like the middleman, the messengers, of course. And she's just trying to kind of reform this whole system that they have that kind of makes the priests themselves seem like gods, and to make the gods seem so unreachable. So it's all of this like it's politics. There's also minimum romance in this. There's a little bit, but like basically nothing happens. I mean, I already gave this 5 stars. How much more can I love it? And the end stressed me out so much. It stressed me out so much. And then comes spring break, and I decided I was gonna finally read the Truly Devious trilogy, which I have a video out on. I think it's already out because I think this is gonna go after all of that stuff. But go there if you want to hear more of my thoughts. But I rated the entire trilogy overall 4.5. Yeah. And these 2 were rereads for me. And this was new. And I annotated them a lot. And I finished that by Wednesday, by the way. So there was still more. The Six of Crows duology. It is no surprise that I loved this duology. 5 stars. We're gonna start with the rating. 5 stars. I also really like the colors I chose to use. I usually use yellow for commentary, but I was running out of yellow on a lot of my pads. So I decided to use pink, and then the palette ended up coming out really nicely because I didn't use green. But this series is truly as good as everybody says it is. And that was my March wrap-up. Yes, it was a fantastic reading month for me. I loved it. It was great. I loved everything I read. It's always satisfying when you start and finish multiple series in the same month. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!